Good evening, everyone. I'm Ivana Borovnjak, and I will be moderating sort of tonight's event on behalf of Oaza Books Publishing. So thank you for joining. Before we start, I would just like to mention that the conversation is being recorded, and we're going live on Facebook. So if there are any questions from the audience, please let us know either here on Zoom, in the chat box, or on Facebook as well. Before we start with the presenting of the project, let me give you a little bit of the context about our publishing house. Oaza Books is an independent publisher on art, artistic research, design, poetry, and illustration. Books are designed, edited, and published by Art and Design Collective Oaza from Zagreb. So this basically means that when we publish a book, we are always to a certain degree involved in the process of making it, not only selling or distributing. So far, we have established several editions. One of them is O-Book, which arose from the need to articulate critical views derived from self-initiated works of Oaza members. Then there is A-Book edition, which is Artist Books edition, which focuses on collaboration with artists. So those are the books that use contemporary art practice, graphic design, and publishing. And then there's another series of illustrated edition for children, and of course, Oaza and Friends, which is a co-production and co-publishing project in which members of Oaza Collective participate in different roles. Tonight's talk is about our most recently published book, which is called Art Without Place. And this is a second in the series of talks happening this weekend during the New York Fair, or actually this year it's a virtual artist book fair, which Oaza is joining for the first time. Let me introduce the tonight's speakers. First of all, Ana Kuzmanić, who is, hi Ana, who is an artist and initiator of the project. Ana is a visual artist based in Croatia. I will read her biography. Ana's work emerges from the interdisciplinary space of art and social practice. Her work actively problematizes everyday life, examines tensions between the individual and the social, politics and poetics, and seeks potentials for change. She has exhibited in numerous solo and group exhibitions and is the recipient of several awards, including the Radoslav Kutar Award. Alongside her own practice, she works with the International Arts Collective Eastern Surf, and Ana is associate professor at the University in Split. Then the director of PS122 Gallery, Ian Cofre from New York, who participated in some aspects of delivering this work. Hi, Ian. Besides being a director of the gallery, he's also an independent curator, writer, and translator based in Brooklyn, New York. For nearly 15 years, he has created exhibitions and programs that examine contemporary problems critically and in an interdisciplinary manner. Working collaboratively, he creates spaces for inquiry that include multiple perspectives in order to challenge how we see and experience things. His main areas of interest are Latin America, systems like the art market, and alternative economies and the modes of art production. And finally, Maja Ćirić. Hi, Maja, curator and art critic from Belgrade, who wrote the introduction to the project and who will speak about the broader context in which this book has emerged. Maja was the curator of Mediterranea Young Artist Biennial in Tirana 2017 and has been both the curator in 2007 and the commissioner in 2013 of the Serbian Pavilion at the Venice Biennial. Maja's area of expertise is curating as a practice of institutional critique, Maja is involved in projects examining the relationship between art and science, thus taking part in the digital journey. So, hello everyone and welcome. And now I will shift the focus to the project that we are presenting tonight. It is the book Art Without Place, which was initiated by Ana Kuzmanić in 2020. And it is in short, as Maja Ćirić said during one of our previous conversations, a resilient, rapid response to the COVID-19 provoked crisis. It is also a project which shifts between different mediums, from an online questionnaire in the form of a website to the book, to possibly an installation in an exhibition space. And it is also a project that is shifting focus from the art object itself towards the subjects of the art world, meaning artists, curators, or actually any cultural workers in general. But now I would like to give words to Ana and ask her to basically introduce the project concept in more detail on her own, and tell us a little bit about the motivation behind the project and how did this current situation with COVID influence the decisions about the project. And then we can maybe afterwards talk about the process itself and the broader context of the work.
Thank you, Ivana, for introduction. Firstly, I would like to thank Collective Oaza, who really support me through whole this project. It was really amazing collaboration. Also, I would like to thank Gallery PS122 from New York to also support me through whole this project. So the project Art Without Place is a collective project which talks about global culture situation from perspective of cultural workers through this crisis in the COVID period. It shares voices of the artists, curator, musicians, filmmakers, and all other who feel as a cultural workers who agree to contribute to the project. The whole research was started almost a year ago at the beginning of the first lockdown in Europe. It was done through the website, which was very simply formed in a way that it was like questionnaire where everyone who would like could submit basic information about occupations and where he is from, and actually answer two questions. One question was about which challenge they are facing right now in this situation. And another question was about the future and prediction of art and culture after COVID crisis. That website was, let's say, active for a couple of months, and in those few months, we collect around 50 different contributions from all around the world in a form of text or in form of pictures or links or etc. What is maybe also important to mention, you could choose if you want to be anonymous, or you could go forward with your name. Once you put your contribution in, it was immediately see lively on the website, so anyone who contribute could read through contribution of the others. Once that website get slowly, it didn't feel anymore. Me and my co-editor Peter Jandrić took that material and did this book we are talking today about. That book contained all contributions which appear on the website, so we didn't select anything. We keep everything what was submitted in the book. The contribution was just slightly edited and translated. The contribution was made, for example, in Spanish or something like that. But we was really trying to keep that voice authentic as possible. Then each contribution was paired with a set of COVID statistics. That decision was made to make like framework to describe the context when contributions was made. So that statistic mainly cover the number of infected and that in the period when contributions appear from a country where contributions are from. And then there is another 3 bullets which cover more policy response to the COVID, which actually shape our lives and cultural lives in general. At the beginning of the book, there is a fantastic introduction of Maja Ćirić, which give a kind of more broad perspective on the whole project. Then there is my introduction, which talk more about motives, and Peter wrote a text afterwards, which talk more open some questions for future, yeah, in this situation. I would use just this situation. I think this would never appear if there was so many my peers and colleagues and friends who agreed to contribute. So in this way, I would really like to thank everyone who spent the energy, time, and effort to contribute. Thank you very much. Yeah, you say that. I mentioned I should talk something about motivation, no, Ivana?
Yes, definitely. I think that actually this work relates a lot to your previous projects and also to your inquiries while staying in New York, where this whole project started. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
So this format of the project really appeared from this space of uncertainty at beginning of the lockdown. You know, suddenly you lose control of everything. Most of my exhibitions was canceled or postponed. It was really impossible to plan almost anything, and it was. In that period of the first few weeks of the lockdown, I'm based in Zagreb. In Zagreb, there was a really strong earthquake, which kind of demolished this city center where all cultural institutions are based. So it was one really specific period, and we was locked in the house, and I was really kind of understand that it's not just poses of the whole, pose of the life, that actually what is happening is this complete transformation of life in front of our eyes. And in that immediately my reaction was, okay, I want to get thoughts and feelings of my friends and colleagues I can see in this situation. So that was like first immediately a reaction. But of course, in the background there was deeper question going on. So I believe that art system and the culture was in a crisis even before pandemic. There was lots of precarious situation, and all this mechanism was kind of unsustainable in a way. And what this COVID crisis bring on the surface is basically that all those questions from before became very, very obvious. You know, it was, you couldn't hide it anymore anywhere. You know, so. In that situation, I believe that we as a society are facing like some major crisis. It's not just COVID crisis, it's economical crisis. There is on top of it ecological crisis, and it's very clear that we have need for some really structural transformation, which will push us to adjust our personal life, but not just a personal, but also collective life, and that includes culture too, and and in light of that, I believe that no one's have answered how these transformations will be, but it's really important that the voice of the people who really work in a culture, who are maybe not on the top, who are not in a higher structure of the cultural institution, but who work in maybe not profit sector, etc., kind of get a voice and start to be part of those, let's say, building ideas and shaping that transformation for a future. So that was kind of in background in my head before I pushed that button to start the project. Yeah.
Well, when I browsed through the book, I mean, it seems like the project that you started initially is a way of expressing the difference between our conditions of work and the ones that you faced in the United States are actually becoming the one voice now, because you also have different entries from all over the world. And I thought maybe just to read a few excerpts from the book. For instance, I will not name the authors, but I will just browse quickly through the book. For instance, one of the authors or artists that participated says, like many in the cultural field, I feel like our lives and work will be forever changed. And my partner said, just as the pandemic began to take hold, well, that's our nice lives gone. I thought he was overly pessimistic at the time, but now I fear that many of the things that we have struggled to keep hold of, the nice things that have made late capitalism bearable, cafes, libraries, swimming pools, community and arts venues, and indeed the small amounts of funding available for the arts, will be the first things to go in the UK, where under our government austerity 2.0 will no doubt be enforced. Then there's also a lot of anonymous testimonies, as we call them, on the website. For instance, since my earliest childhood, I was inculcated with the ideas that it is important to have good grades in subjects such as mathematics, physics, chemistry, etc. If you fail only one of these important subjects, your situation becomes boring, as if talent and enjoyment in creative subjects are a recipe for failure in life. However, in this situation with the quarantine, we can see how many people took up some exercise, drawing, painting, playing music, and a whole range of other creative interests in order to remain positive and active. I mean, I can go on with this, but basically, maybe it's a good time now to ask also Ian, who to some degree also participated in the project and who met Ana while staying at her residency in New York, from which this project also emerged in a way. How did you get involved in the project? And what is the current situation in your galleries, and specifically in your own gallery?
Yes. So, of course, thank you, Oaza, Ivana, Ana, and Maja for inviting me to speak to this. And yeah, it was Residency Unlimited in 2019, around April, May, when I was introduced to Ana by Boško Bošković, who was a program manager at the time. And I think that it was really just the informal conversations that we were having at the time that were really sort of insightful and incisive about the conditions in New York, right? And it kind of felt, again, like one of those moments where everything just seemed untenable, or the way Ana put it, just unsustainable and precarious. And it was also around the time that I was having similar conversations with other groups that we were contemplating forming a group that has had a project at the gallery at this point called the Art Workers Lab. So this conversation around an identity of cultural workers, cultural producers, not just including artists, but inclusive of the whole sort of totality of people who, work in cultural labor, to really bring them to the fore, what their voice is, and this project just really was in a similar vein. And well, not this project yet because it wasn't ideated yet, but Ana's work. And so we invited Ana to do an exhibition. We had originally planned it for early 2020, ostensibly as a partner to the Art Workers Lab, or as part of it. And we rescheduled just because of things from life, difficulty to schedule at the beginning of that year for the beginning of 2021. And of course, just a few weeks later, the first instances of COVID were being marked all around the world, and everything just radically changed. And so I think that something that you said, Ivana, just about being active is something that is really important. In a way, I think that the artists that we were talking about doing projects and really just still working towards projects were finding ways to structure what this sort of uncertain time was going to be, and give it form. So not unlike another artist that I've been working with, DeVille Cohen, in his project Hand to Mouth. I think what Ana did was, take her concerns, give it a framework, put something out there, although it was uncertain at the time what it would become, a way to really source those ideas and collect those ideas into some kind of archive. And I thought that was really, really important for what this was becoming, right? And obviously, we, as we had to cancel exhibitions and rethink of what our entire program was, it became a question of, well, how best do we support the artists that we wanted to work with? What other ways can we take what we have as an institution, a nonprofit institution, but an institution nonetheless, and redirect it into other energy? And that, in some really simple and crude terms, just meant, the money that we had to do shows had to be applied somewhere else. So if we were going to originally invite Ana to fly out to New York to do a project in the space, that meant that frees that up. How do we use it? And I think it became really important that the book was designed by Oaza. It was going to print. We could invest in printing more copies. Why not? Like, those are exactly the kinds of things that we need to support and take a risk on, because it is the form that it's taken. And so, at this point, it's still difficult, I think, for me to think of what although I'm coming out of it now, but like what a post-COVID art world will look like. But I think, all of these corollary materials, not just the dematerialized and sort of digital interface that we've gone into, but everything from artist books, from prints, from other objects are really important. And to me, still represent something tactile and embodied to a certain point, which is what we were basically pulled away from by the pandemic. So those are the sorts of projects that I think about. And, unfortunately, our gallery still continues to be closed because our city-owned building has yet to reopen in a way that's feasible for us to safely retake. And as we still plan forward, for us, it's working through, a set of limitations to try and do the best kind of work that we can do, and support as many artists as possible. So I think, you know, the conversation around cultural workers has become more and more central to what we're doing. And I think that projects like Ana's and hopefully a future exhibition that we could still do together in some form, whether it's around this book in particular or another idea and project. Those are the projects that we've sort of reoriented our mission towards, in a way, more generally supporting the labor that goes into cultural production. So.
Yeah,
Are there any concrete actions? You mentioned the art workers lab that you are currently working on.
Yeah, the Art Workers Lab was essentially a project of January, February 2020, the inaugural one, that brought together groups that are focused on coalition building and elevating worker stories, and providing services, whether it's for freelancers, for other people working in the cultural sector, giving them a space and opportunity to connect. And the second iteration that we're doing is going to be longer term. We haven't announced it thus far, but we are focusing more on a newsletter kind of missive of, again, sourcing voices and bringing them to the fore, giving them form and giving them a way to be distributed a little bit further, and in a way building more solidarity between workers.
Ana, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, the moment passed, but there was this one moment when Ian was explaining how it should be exhibition, and I think that moment is kind of really important for design of the book, because Ivana is designer of the book. So there was whole this process where actually I wasn't sure if we are doing a book or we are doing exhibition, and I think that's double meaning of these objects. It's kind of really embodied in the product at the end, because it was planned as one line which should be like 15 meters long for a gallery space, and then when you put this line together, it became a book. So it's kind of have a double function, and I think Ivana really responds amazing to this. You know, I don't know what we are doing, you know, so she really creatively used that space of unknown to create something like this.
Well, yeah, this was an interesting moment because I mentioned that before also, that this shift from a medium to the another medium, which was actually a website. So it was sort of like following the function basically of the website itself. So the whole book is organized in a way that reflects this line of entries, and each paper can be easily ripped out of the book. So it can also be in a way upgraded. You know, the situation is obviously not stopping or not ending so soon. So maybe there's also possibility to continue getting entries and filling in the book as well. But Maja, you also wrote an interesting introduction to the project in which you reflect upon the art systems in general and this hierarchy in the art world. Also talking about precarious working conditions of artists. Can you say a little bit about the broader context of art today, and how does this project fit into the questions that we are faced at the moment?
Of course, thank you, Ivana. First of all, I'm very grateful for being on board, because I think that despite the conditions that, besides the conditions that COVID is imposing, we're also facing an emergence of totalitarian regimes that control the cultural sector. And I think that independent voices don't have many opportunities to be heard. And first of all, this book is important because I was glad to say something about this book. Why? Because it is, as a website, actually, it is like a confession room. It was like a confession room. It served as a confession room. But then as a book, it became an object. It became a para-institutional object that served as a trace. That a different art world was there, an art world that was not supported, an art world that needed support. Of a different kind than the institutional one. So because in the independent sector, all of us are pivoting all the time, even before pivoting is an essential thing, but pivoting amidst the crisis is something completely different. And now it's been already a year of a crisis. So this book comes as a testimony of an entire intermediary sector of the art world that's not privileged. And I find it politically very relevant. So even if you don't read what's in the book as an object, it is a body of words that people scattered all around the world. They said they had something to say, and that is visible in the very object of the book. So the book stands for the para-institutional, for the alter-institutional, the counter-institutional, and the basic questions that's been raised with this book. Is this a chance for restructuring of the art world or not? Can we use the COVID-induced crisis to emphasize a different art world from the one that was before? Is this dematerialization of the art world our chance for a so-called democracy or new communism in the art world? It might be a utopia of a kind, of course, it might be, but utopia is supposed to make us going. So I think it's a great contribution, Ana, and I would like to congratulate you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for the text.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ana, you a lot of times you also mentioned how you like in the book this sort of equalization of the voices that happen.
Sorry, can you say it again? I have a hard time.
I like how each participant is equal in the book, equally treated, whereas in the art world there is this strong hierarchy between the curator and artist usually, and also other workers. So you said a few times during our previous conversation that you really like the fact that everyone is sort of equal in this book.
I think like art space is usually we see as a space of freedom and democracy, and the system work completely opposite. It's very structural work and very hierarchical, and there is huge difference between those top of pyramid and the rest. So yeah, it's actually more push competition than compassion. That's the systematic problem. It's not about individuals. It's more about the structure actually push you to think and act in that way. And I see that as problematic, but I think that I became aware of all of this during that residency in New York, because I'm from periphery and I operate in one really small circle of not-profit organizations. And there is no market in Croatia, there is nothing like that. So you are not actually aware of the whole system and structure. And what's happened when I was in New York, I realized that I'm completely lost in meaning, in reading the artworks, in reading the value. I'm lost in translation. Because that system, their work with different values than system I'm working in, and it's not so easily and so transparent to just jump there and understand what's going on. And then Ian, I discuss those things all the time with everyone I met to try to understand, you know, and Ian really helped me to put a puzzle in the head. So that trip really helped me to see that system differently than from position of someone who is from periphery, basically, not including that word, you know. And it's really, you see it's impossible in that word that the voices of people from periphery, from people who are not in the middle of that the voices are equally present. It's just not realistic, you know. So yeah, there is this global thing, but also each of us live in a different country, and then we have different laws, so it's not so easily to talk about it, because in one hand we are really global world, but on the other on us reflect the decision of which are, you know, local, which are from a government of the country we live in, you know. So even with this statistic was really interesting when you compare, for example, how German government react to COVID situation compared to Croatian government. You know, it's really changed the meaning of the art in society. You know, when you just read that statistics, it's obvious that German government plays it differently than Croatian government and then USA government, you know. So it's really hard to talk about it, you know, just globally, you know. It's kind have both coins, you know, local and global in a way.
But Ana, I think besides that, you managed to find your space of belonging even in New York, because it is a plural art world. So by associating yourself with Ian and his gallery, and I think that's what the website and the book is, a space of belonging, a new space of belonging.
Yeah, I succeeded at the end, but it was more luck than knowledge, you know. So.
I like the fact that in you know, just like when this whole crisis ends finally, there is this document of time that is a sort of a reminder of how to manage similar situations that we might find ourselves in the future. And speaking of future, maybe just like one last question, maybe it is a bit banal, but since Ana, you asked in the questionnaire, actually, I will read the question. Describe challenges facing your work and family life within the pandemic, and how do you imagine the future of arts and culture after COVID-19? I think it's maybe fair if you all say a little remark about that, about your predictions for the future.
Who is first? Me? All right. Okay, if I talk about a local context, I don't have too good predictions. It's like, unfortunately, it's all those value spaces of not-profit art sector is really in economical crisis right now, and I'm kind of really afraid who will survive that. So that's from local perspective. I'm really afraid. Talking more globally, I think that those huge gigs of thousands biennales around the world, which was based on the cheap tourism, that's completely unsustainable, and I'm not sure if we will see that again in that form. So I think that's kind of transformation to more it's maybe it's wrong word local, but smaller scale of production of the culture. you know, no one's have clear answers, but I think it won't be like it was before. I think it will change for sure. And yeah, it will be, you know, time to fight for value of the art, I think, and the space of the art in society. Yeah.
Ian?
I mean, it's a big question. New York still considers itself the center of the art world and the art universe. So, you know, a lot of work is going to go into trying to revive art tourism as such for the museums, for the larger institutions. But I agree with Ana. I think that that will not be the same. I don't think it'll completely disappear, but it just won't come back in the same way. But it also means that, you know, the over-reliance on large institutions to support this larger cultural ecology also has to change. What that will look like, you know, I hope that there will be the creativity that comes from the artists to be able to show us new possibilities. You know, the artist I mentioned earlier has started a dance company, for instance. And that's, you know, that's the sort of form that his work will be taking in, and it will support a number of dancers, producers, composers, etc. Through this format. But I think it's going to have to come through greater collective action, right? What even going back into institutions will require demands for better, whether it's better paying jobs, better healthcare, all of the sort of support questions, and that shouldn't stop at the institutions, because we've already seen them not keep their end of the bargain, and that means more governmental policy and better support all the way up. And you know, the statistic that Ana brought up about Germany versus other places, I mean, it really does show you how little value is placed on culture locally. The U.S. really did not invest into much of the culture sector following the pandemic. But we're also in a transition of government, so we'll see if that somehow improves, but it won't improve in the way that is absolutely necessary without more work and demands, right?
And Maja, you are based in Belgrade now, right?
Yeah. But I do participate in various projects, international projects, and from what I perceive, I think the art world will belong to the agents of transformation. I think that we will see new hybrids of all sorts. The virus is already another that we didn't count on before, a year before, and now we are used to other species, and we will have to take them in consideration, whether they come from Mars or from some other parts of our planet that we didn't take in consideration before. So I would say the agents of transformation within a hybrid environment, they will endure. And this does not mean that the intellectuals and small-scale projects will not endure as well, because in these small communities you find the transformation. This is where the transformation emerges first of all, and then it goes to the mainstream. So I am a firm believer in subculture and counterculture. I don't believe in big institutions. I think they're going to be late with what's going on, as they are late with this COVID crisis as well. And also, I think that we will encounter more and more hybrid digital formats of creativity, which are unforeseen yet. And so these are my predictions. I think we will not go back to normal, which is actually exciting. And yeah.
Yes.
I mean, cocktails, the biennials aside, and VIP previews. I think we're forming a new VIP, new VIPs, because the agents of transformation with a very specific ethics will be the new VIPs.
I like this sort of optimistic ending of this conversation. But as we are approaching the end, I would like to just see if any of the participants of the project, because Ana also always points out that this is not her project, but is a collaborative, participatory project. Maybe someone who joined us on Zoom would like to pose a question. If so, you can write in the chat, or you can also just turn off your microphone and join in. I see that the editor of the book, one of the editors of the book, is also present, Petar Jandrić. Hi, Petar.
Who knows him?
Muted. Okay. Well, before I end, hi, Petar. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry again. So, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi guys, hi everybody. I'm sorry,
Hello.
somebody has to babysit, so I stayed at home. And I caught up only the second part of the talk, but it's really wonderful. And I really like all these, I just like seeing all these ideas behind the book, really, now, and behind the whole project, where kind of with Ana, I did one small part with editing, because this is kind of what I do normally. But artist book is a bit different than like a regular book, and than books that I'm normally doing. And it's so interesting, and so like actually it's amazing to see all these differences, how an artist book comes into being, and all this, exactly this collaborative part and all that. So yeah.
Sorry, Petar, I called you out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I was
Sleeping, no.
just listening with about one ear and doing other stuff as well.
Okay, well, this talk will also be available on Facebook to watch later on, and we will also make a YouTube channel where you can watch it afterwards. And if anyone would like to buy the book, I have to say this, it's available on our website, oazabooks.com, and we are soon enough going to distribute the free digital version of the book so that everyone can have it in the PDF format. Okay, if no one else has anything to add, I would like to thank everyone. Thank you for joining. It was a real pleasure to work with all of you, and we are really happy on behalf of Oaza Books that we were able to publish the book. And I also hope that in the near future, Ana and will be able to exhibit the project in a physical space, and that we can gather somewhere in a physical environment and talk about it in live, in person. Thank you all.